What's up everybody, this is Ven, and I welcome you to the MOC Spotlight, where we take apart what you build. For today's episode, we'll be taking a good hard look at the Mask of Victory, created by our very own TTV member, Eljay. This creation was entered into the LEGO hosted Mask Contest, where 3 winners would be selected by LEGO's own judges. Unfortunately, Eljay didn't claim any sort of victory, as the name of his mask would suggest. And before we delve into what this creation had to offer, let me talk about my method of reviewing, which involves a point system that is based on 3 fundamental attributes: the overall appearance of the MOC, the build of the MOC itself, and the concept and ideas behind the MOC's creation. Each quality will mount up to 5 points, leading up to a final score that will be determined at the end of the episode. And please remember that this is all based on my opinion. Now let's get this started. So first off, this mask looks pretty decent at first glance. It's impressive to see all these parts thrown together to form some comprehensive shape, and with such consistency in the coloration too. Primarily, this mask is made up of gold parts with a few black shapes thrown into the design for contrast and brightness, and small hints of transparent purple for contrast in hue. Paying no mind to the purple, the colors are distributed pretty well enough to evoke an actual color scheme. Unfortunately, the purple is restricted to the eyes of the mask. It doesn't look bad or awkward. In fact, it's a perfect color choice to add to the scheme, but that actually makes me wish there was a bit more purple used in other areas of the mask. Not necessarily to improve the mask design, but just to add a little bit more to it. The mask design itself is a bit busy. There's a lot of different shell pieces being used here to cover up the structure of the mask and give it a legitimate appearance, and it makes the mask look a bit cluttered up in areas like the sides and the forehead. But for the most part, Eljay remained fairly consistent with the placement of these parts, and some portions, like the sides of the forehead and the mouth, actually look pretty good regardless. I can't help but get a sort of a rodent vibe just from looking at the mouth. Now I want to take a moment to point out how the sides have these spikes kind of sticking out of them. And I think this is a really cool idea, but I don't think it was actually integrated into the mask design all that well. I mean, they kind of just protrude out of nowhere, and it doesn't look like the mask actually transitioned into these spikes. I feel like Eljay could have paid a bit more attention to this portion of the MOC, because it's kind of a neat little motif to have these spikes sticking out of the mask. It just wasn't really done in the best way, I feel. I think Eljay could have really capitalized on this. Probably would have ended up giving the mask a more unique shape, other than this, I don't know, eggplant shape, because as it stands right now, these spikes just don't really look too effective. It's almost like, well, why even throw them in there in the first place? And another feature that I think is pretty cool, and I wish would have been translated in other parts of the mask, are these black parts used on the forehead. It kind of look like big black eyebrows. I feel like he could have made some sort of motif out of this too, to make the mask a bit more interesting looking. But instead, we have some sort of egg-shaped mask with big black eyebrows and purple eyes. I'm kind of starting to see why Eljay got docked points for creativity. But that does kind of suck, because Eljay's mask is actually pretty creative in terms of the build. It looks as though the MOC was primarily based on CCBS. He just kind of made some sort of frame out of CCBS parts and then attached all the armor onto it to give it the actual appearance that it has now, which is pretty cool. I think that's a really smart way to do it. Rather than focusing on the appearance at first, he focused on the actual structure and shaping. And by doing this, he also allowed himself to add this little function to the mask, where this portion of the mouth could be popped open through this little gear mechanism, allowing the wearer access to his own mouth. So say Eljay wants to wear this mask, and then he also wants to eat a sandwich. So he just pops open this baby, and then he eats a sandwich, and he's happy. You know, if he didn't win the contest, at least he won a sandwich. This is a really cool feature that Eljay didn't even have to include in the MOC at all, but he did anyway, just to give it a bit more something, you know? And then of course, once the bone structure of the face or mask thing is all done, he proceeded to attach all these shell pieces on it and yada yada. and it turned out looking the way it does. And now, the problem with this method of using CCBS primarily is that since every part relies on a ball joint connection, then that leaves a lot of parts free to just move about independently. And I can see this in the paw pieces used around the mouth, these parts around the forehead, even the purple eyebrows. And the black eyebrows also have this problem, but the interesting part is they don't seem to be connected through a ball joint connection. At least that's not how they're supposed to connect. I don't know how he did it, but they're definitely loose from a fixed position. And that's pretty much it right there. A lot of the parts are not completely in a fixed position. And not only does that mess with the appearance of the mask, but it also kind of messes with its overall structure. I mean, I'm betting it's annoying if you're wearing the mask and you're trying to show it off to somebody, and then you have to kind of like tinker with something that, or fiddle with something that just keeps moving out of place every 5 minutes. Yeah, nah, that just doesn't work. And then, of course, that ends up making the mask look a little clumped up or whatever in some places. I mean, look at it. You can already make out just the smallest little asymmetrical parts here. That's no good. But at least the thing isn't like falling apart completely, you know. It's built properly to the point where it works as a mask and even has this little function. So props to you, LJ. Now let's talk about the concepts and ideas behind this mask. So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this MOC was created for a specific contest that LEGO recently held and hosted on Facebook, where participants must enter a mask built out of LEGO Bionicle and Technic, other sorts of construction elements. And then the winners of the contest will be determined by LEGO's very own judges, who would specifically look for creativity, color scheme, and build. And from what I'm to understand, LJ got the points for the build and the color scheme, but they also docked off a point for creativity. That's a little interesting, considering LJ's mask, I would argue, is fairly creative in of itself. I mean, it has this cool function that I don't really see featured on any other entries, but I feel like that was acknowledged when they took a look at the build, considering that's what I do when I look at the build. I look for structural solidification, the sturdiness, and whatever sort of functions and features were implemented into the MOC. Because really, that is all according to how the MOC was built. I'm not looking at its appearance. But when I am looking at its appearance, I do look for its color scheme, which LJ did get on the dot. You know, he used the gold and the black really well, and the transparent purple. While there isn't enough of it, it's still really welcome. But then the creativity does come into question. And I did mention earlier that I find the mask to be kind of like a potato shape with like a rat snout and these giant bushy eyebrows and eye holes, but that's just the way I see it. And then I got to thinking, maybe the judges didn't really see so much out of this MOC aside from a big golden potato with eye holes. The problem with LJ's mask is that it doesn't have too many defining characteristics added to it. It's just a big golden mask, and sure, it was done really well and it was built fairly well and the little functions really cool looking, but does the mask itself look all that creative? That is a legitimate question. There's no real motif that the mask's design tries to follow. You'd think it'd be the spiky sort of thing since it's available in some small parts of the MOC, but that's the problem, they're only in some small parts of the MOC. If features such as these were a bit more prominent on the MOC, then we'd have a bit more character, more to remember. Because look at the 3 masks that did win the contest. The first one has a very distinctive shape and overall design. The second one also had a fairly distinctive shape with the sort of spiky motif and this big visor with the big circle in the middle. You know, big features that really grab hold of your attention. And then the same thing goes for the third creation with these big ol' eyes and this sort of menacing appearance. And then LJ's mask just doesn't really have any defining characteristics like this. At least none that really pop out at me immediately. So, all that said, let's move on to the final scores. In terms of appearance, this MOC receives a 0 out of 5 because this MOC freaking sucks. I mean, it looks like crap. Looks like a big hunk of golden crap. LJ, what'd you do? You made a big golden potato. You're so obsessed with potatoes that you made a potato thing. Now, in terms of the build, this build gets a 1 out of 5. Good effort. I like the mouth thing. Everything else sucks. And then, concept. The concept receives 0 out of 5. You lost the contest, therefore you lose here too. You did bad and you should feel bad. And yeah, get good, you scrub. And then final score, 1 out of 15. Oh my goodness, the lowest score the MOC Spotlight has ever seen. Everybody, just dress up in black. May this mask rest in peace. Tragic efforts from TTV member LJ. Oh jeez. Oh no, this is not good. I need to end this video right now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check out our message boards at board.ttvpodcast.com and check out the LEGO Creations category where you are free to post your own LEGO creations and gain yourself a higher possibility of being featured on the MOC Spotlight at some point in the future. Don't let this low score discourage you. There's no way you can do worse than LJ. Again, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all next time.